Saturday.
All right. Ooh.
Please stand and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And good evening to any and all folks joining us this evening via Zoom. There is no one here live, but we would like to welcome the 2022-2023 Select Board and the new member, Steve DeAngelis. As we begin tonight, it is good to have you here, and recently reelected Catherine Woodsum. We have our first up, and to sort of move along with item 22-144, the Select Board minutes from May 16th, June 2nd, and June 13th. I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of May 16th, June 2nd, and 13th as presented. I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the minutes as presented. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? All right, that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Our next item is warrants, 22-145, 52 through 53. Mr. Keegan, I think you are still doing these.
I am.
And don't forget, I always like to say this, speak clearly into the microphone so everyone who is at home can hear us nice and loud. Thank you.
Sorry for a second. I thought I had different numbers, but I don't. So that's handy. So warrant 52 and 53 for a total of $72,691.19. I think some of the bigger things to mention was our Flaherty bill for $2,280. The cemetery, Eric, actually I meant to ask you this, sorry. There was a $420 equipment purchase or for the uprighting of some stonework. Did we not get a piece of equipment for the town sexton to do that independently at one point a year or so ago? And
yeah, so they have a tripod they can use for some stones, but some stones are also either too large or beyond the technical ability that we currently have. So my guess is that was for one or two large stones that they probably couldn't set without a piece of equipment.
okay, perfect. And we had some fire truck repairs for a total of $1,175.72 and a secondary repair for $2,178. Sadly, I saw the repairs for the walker that we tried to repair that we cannot repair for $2,072.42. And that is everything
All right.
on the article.
I'll make a motion to approve the warrants in the total amount, if I can find it, of, is this the $72,691.19? I second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept warrants 52 and 53. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? All right, it is unanimous. Thank you very much. We move now to Select Board Communications. We have 20 minutes for total communication, but 5 in case any members of the Select Board would like to address the public. Go right ahead, Catherine.
I would just like to thank all those voters who placed their trust in me and reelected me. And for those who didn't vote for me, I hope that I can win your trust throughout my next term.
Thank you very much. Great. I appreciate that. And we will move now to staff reports. This is where we have 10 minutes set aside. Eric will give us a little bit of information about what's happening with the town staff.
All right, thanks. So it's at the back of the packet, but I just want to show everybody. The First Park, for the first time in 25 years, turned a profit. So we will be more than likely over the next several decades recouping and surpassing our investment that we put into that facility. Wow. So this has been a long time coming. And I'm just ecstatic that they finally made that, they turned that corner.
So we made $18,000, give or take, yeah?
I think it was a little bit less than, I think it was only about 3,000 after the net investment of 15, but
understood.
But it's
a small amount, but it's impressive because it's the first time it's been more than we paid in.
Absolutely.
So wait a minute, that was, we got 3,000 and what's the frequency of that?
So that would be, I think, for this, so typically, we have a budget of about 15,000. And so the 18 coming back is where we made the profit.
But is that,
That's annual, once
Annual,
a
is
year,
it?
once a
Okay.
year, yep.
thank you.
Yep. Sorry, yeah.
It was 112.4%
Return.
return. So we got 12% more than we paid in this year
Yep.
only.
Next year's gonna be
But-
fantastic. They
But
just
as
sold a
long
bunch
as
more
nobody
lots.
leaves
so.
and they all stay where they are, then next year we will continue to get more than what we're paying in.
Yep.
So,
Absolutely. So the other items that we have, we've got report on the hazardous waste collection day. I did include the basic information in the packet. I'll let Karen come up and say a few words on that, if you'd like.
And if you don't mind, say your name.
Yeah, I'm Karen Pearson and I'm at the transfer station. Yes, that's July 10th from 9 a.m. until 12 noon. And we've been passing out the applications for it. It's very simple. Anyone who has anything that, as I say, anything bad that we normally tell them, put back in their vehicles and drive it away. The antifreeze, old gas, old paints, you name it, paint thinners, all kinds of bad chemicals. The only thing is you need to take the application and you need to go to the town office and they will assign you a time slot. They're pretty much on a 15-minute increment. And what we're trying to do is make sure that we don't have too many people stacked up waiting in line. In the past, when we used to do this in Augusta, it was because mostly they did the best they could, but they were dealing with many, many towns. And as anyone who ever went there knows that you waited forever in line. So hopefully we'll be able to limit that and pretty much we take the same amount of items. So are there any questions on that? We hope everybody participates.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Karen, for all you do at the transfer
So we
station.
just wanted to highlight that.
Love it.
Bring your toxic waste, bring your pesticides, your herbicides, your used old gas. Let us know about it and we'll take care of it for you. Free of charge.
And prescriptions, right?
We are not doing prescription at the
Okay,
same
I thought I
time.
saw it on the list, but
It is,
No, that's a different, yeah.
it is on the picture.
it is on the
It's
list.
on the one picture. I think they said they
Oh,
have a small.
that
bin
picture.
take some on
Okay.
that.
Yep.
So no.
So, yeah.
It's mostly, most of the
RX.
prescriptions are done through the
Take.
semi-annual blood take that.
'Cause I know you usually need somebody like in charge of taking those.
Or they have
Absolutely.
special containers that it goes in.
Exactly. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll change that picture. Thank you for catching that. So the other item is a summary of some of the land use and appeals ordinance changes that were approved at town meeting. And I want to bring this up because it is important for people to know that these are living documents. They do change. And over the past 2 years of the pandemic, we did face some criticism for our process, for things being a little bit slow, a little bit confusing. And so those were taken seriously, and the changes, many of them, most of them, that went into this ordinance were intended to streamline and clarify the process for both the land use ordinance and the planning board and the appeals board that hears decisions by the planning board and others. So I wanted to just highlight that those changes were made, that they happened, that they are in response to feedback from the public. And I think they're very positive. One item that was kind of a standalone from that that's worth noting is a measure to protect the water quality in our community. We now have a requirement that when a property is transferred or sold that's in the shoreland zone, that it have a septic inspection done. And this is one way to make sure that most people get home inspections nowadays. Most people include a septic inspection as part of that. But we still have some legacy issues, steel tanks on the lakes. And we actually had to clean up probably, man, it was probably 6 or 8 as part of one little subdivision area 2 or 3 years ago. And it came to our attention because one person said, I've got a problem. And then all of a sudden we got down there and there were many of them. And it was taken care of voluntarily by the property owners. But this measure is really important. I want people to be aware of it. And it's there to protect water quality so we don't have septage leaking into the lake. So I wanted to highlight that. And thank the boards for working collaboratively to try to improve the process that we use for the planning board and for the appeals.
Excellent. Anything else?
That's it for me.
All righty, excellent. Good, good, good. We move now to our public communications. Members of the public may address the select board. And if you have anything, you can turn your camera on and mic and go for it. Otherwise, we will move on. Zoom going once. Zoom going twice. Zoom sold. All right, very well. We move now to appointments, reappointments, and resignations. We have 15 minutes to set aside for this. Item 22. Yes.
I would just like to request, if possible, to take an article out of order for our auditor who is here,
Okay, is that
Erica McKay.
Eric? Okay, great. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to see if we could take care of that, but that's up to the board.
It's at the, does anyone in the board have any objections to that? We can get Erica out of here and it's no longer a part of our exciting meeting. Hi, Erica. You can probably hear us, but we're going to take item number 22-152 under new business out of order. And this is considering the FY21 audit. You can find this in your packet near the end. It looks like a keynote presentation or a
Page
PowerPoint.
53.
Yes, 53 is where we are. So Eric, if you want to give a little bit of background here, we will get Erica all set.
Okay, so Erica will be doing some screen share in a moment here. I want to make sure we can hear her. Hi, Erica.
Hi, Erica.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today.
Thanks for being here.
So we're just wrapping up the audit, and Erica, I'll let you take it away.
So I'm from RHR Smith and Company. This is kind of our first year with the town of Readfield for the FY21 audit. And what we're going to be doing today is really just looking at the high level key points of your financial statement audit. I've got a presentation for you here, and really what we're going to be doing is just looking at your operating funds, your fund balances, kind of reviewing how the audit process went, what we're looking at, and kind of some notes that we think might help better the town improve. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to share my screen here, and hopefully this works because there's always technological issues somehow.
All right, we can see it there, Erica.
Right, perfect. Let me put this on. All right, so as I said a little bit before, I'm from RHR Smith and Company. We audit probably three-fourths of the municipalities, schools, counties in the state of Maine. We also audit the same in Vermont and some in Massachusetts. So this year for the town of Readfield, the financial statements are what we consider unmodified opinion, meaning that there were no material misstatements that we noted, and that the town is passing with no material defects to the financials. So this here that we're seeing on the screen is going to be a snapshot of your governmental funds balance sheet as of June 30th, 2021. And basically what we're seeing here is your major funds. So that's going to be your general fund or your operating account. And then all other non-major funds, such as your special revenues or permanent funds, those are going to be kind of broken out into the next column under other governmental funds. And actually in the audit that you'll be getting, it will be broken down by each individual reserve. You can see the detail further for each of those as well. But looking again at the general fund here, what we're looking at is we're looking at the balance sheet. So as we're looking at the assets here, this is going to kind of encompass everything that the town owed for the general fund as of year end. So this includes your cash, any investments, accounts receivable, such as taxes, and any other funds that are due from your other governmental funds, which again are your permanent funds, your special revenues. So at year end, you had about $2.5 million in assets. In liabilities, this is what was owed and not paid at year end. So typically when we're looking at the balance sheet, we're looking at a 60-day accrual period. So what this means, instead of looking at everything as a cash basis or what we have in the bank right now, we like to encompass under governmental accounting standards an additional 60 days. So that being said, say if you had a bill that was due for a project that was actually budgeted for in the fiscal year 2021, if you hadn't physically paid that bill, but it was still owed as of June 30th, those payables are going to be reflected in this balance here. So basically what we're saying at year end is that you had about $65,000 remaining that still need to be paid from the budget. And those expenditures are also going to be captured in the profit and loss that we're looking at as well. When we go down to the next category here, we're looking at deferred inflows of resources. This is going to be your prepaid taxes and your deferred tax revenues. So basically, this is just saying that you have about $150,000 that is deferred outside of that 60-day period. And then coming down to the fund balance, or probably what we think is the most important part really, is the general fund balances, which are separated into different categories. So you'll have your non-spendable. Usually this is really if you have any inventory or tax acquired properties. Restricted balances are usually restricted due to any agreements or if they're permanent funds, if there's a contract with that, they'll be restricted for that purpose. Committed fund balances are usually committed by the board, assigned to, as in this case, to carry forward to the next fiscal year. Assigned fund balances typically are what are budgeted to be used, and unassigned fund balance is your remaining funds at year end that are not used and can still be used for anything in the future. So that kind of being said, what we typically like to suggest our clients is really seeing your undesignated fund balance in the general fund sitting around 3 months of your operating budget. So in this case, the budget for the town of Readfield for 2021 was about $6.5 million. And if we kind of break that down into 1 month, 2 months, and 3 months, you're going to see, you know, if you had 1 month of operating budget in your unassigned fund balance, you'd see about $550,000, about $1 million at 2 months, and then about 1.5, 1.6 at 3 months. So as you can see here, you've got about 1.5 million, a little bit over. So I think that the town is definitely in a healthy fund balance if we're kind of considering what we like to see for our municipalities. And really, this is something that we want to see, because we don't want anyone to have cash flow problems. Cash flow is kind of the big thing, especially when you're waiting for taxes to come in. So you have a large project that's not getting reimbursed until later or after the fact. So really kind of making sure that you do have that cushion of unassigned fund balance is definitely important. Going on to the next slide here. There we go. So this is going to be a graph of the past 3 years and kind of comparing your general fund assets from FY21 through FY2019. And so in the green here, you'll see the FY21 balances. In the blue is going to be the FY20 balances, and in the orange is going to be your FY19 balances. So starting with the cash and cash equivalents, you'll see that your cash stays pretty similar throughout the years. It did look like last year you had a little bit more cash at about $2.6 million, where in FY21 and FY19 you had about $2.2 million. In investments, your investments are pretty stagnant as well at about $127,000. And your accounts receivable at year end, which really is primarily made up of your tax receivables, this has actually been decreasing over the years, which is what we like to see. We don't want to see a large receivable balance sitting in your taxes. So looking at this, we're actually saying, oh, this is a great kind of, trend that we're seeing. More taxes are being received within the fiscal year as opposed to having delinquent taxes. In the next slide here, this is going to be a 3-year comparison of your general fund liabilities. And this is going to be what is owed at fiscal year end. So as you can see, the accounts payable is going to be on the left-hand side and accrued payroll is going to be on the right-hand side. Your accrued payroll stays about the same, and accounts payable has actually turned downward a little bit, but usually this isn't anything to kind of to denote an issue with or any concern, as really this is just bills that were due as of year end but not yet paid. And usually that's because either the bill comes later or whatever that may be, but the expenses were still actually encompassed within that fiscal year. Going to the next slide here, this is going to be a comparison of the past 3-year general fund committed fund balances. And here you'll see, starting on the left-hand side, your FY21 committed fund balances of $790,000. This is going to be the carry forwards that you typically carry each year. In 2020, your carry forward balances were about 1.37 million. And in 2019, that number was about 935,000. And here we're going to be taking a look kind of at the unassigned fund balances for your general fund balance, which, as we noted earlier, was everything that has not been committed as of year end for your unassigned fund balance or for your fund balances. So at year end 2020, which is all the way on the left, you'll see that that fund balance actually increased quite a bit. You're at about $1.5 million. In 2020, your unassigned fund balance was about $1.4 million. And similarly in FY19, that was about $1.4 million as well. And if we were to take a look at the other side, just to kind of quickly go back, you'll see that the trend kind of, is going downward with your committed fund balance, and then opposite with your unassigned fund balance. So essentially what we're saying here is that you pretty much are using your unassigned fund balance for your carry forwards or vice versa. So in all, your fund balance hasn't really changed too much. It's just really the allocation between the carry forwards and the unassigned fund balances. And going to the next slide here, for kind of an overview of what we're looking at, for every balance sheet that you see as of June 30th, when we're kind of making the comparisons between the assets, the liabilities, and the equity, you'll also see the opposite side, which is going to be your revenue and expenditure breakdown. And this is actually encompasses the entire year. So while we were looking at a snapshot with the balance sheet at June 30th, at year end, this is going to show us everything that happened within that fiscal year. So in the general fund here, you'll see that you had revenues of about just under $6.4 million. Your other governmental funds, which is noted before, kind of your special revenues, your permanent funds, those are going to be about $54,000 in revenues. The expenses for the general fund, those came in at about $6.8 million. And this is broken out between most of your budgeted categories, which are reflected in your annual town meeting warrant. And then, so down below here, you'll see that the excess revenues for over expenditures are going to be $440,000. You had $5,000 budgeted as a transfer in from your reserve account. So in total, you reduced your fund balance by $435,000, bringing your previous balance of $2.7 million to $2.3 million in your general fund. And majority of this is actually going to be items that were budgeted to be used for the budget period during FY21. So say, for example, when you're budgeting and approving to use $200,000 in carry forwards or 25,000 in unassigned fund balance. We're kind of budgeting into the fact that we're going to be spending more and reducing that fund balance by using those funds. So that's what we're seeing here. And to just kind of give you a quick breakdown of what these general fund revenues and expenditures are made up of, you'll see here that majority of your revenues, or about 84%, are actually comprised of taxes. You'll have another 9–10%, which are going to be intergovernmental revenues. And these are primarily your revenue sharing, Betty, homestead exemptions, and then your charges for services. Those are going to be clerk fees, vitals. Those come in at about 2%, and licenses, permits, those make up the other percentage there. And then looking at your general fund expenditures, similarly, this is going to be a breakdown showing you kind of your top expenses. You have education, which takes up about 53–54% of your budget. County tax is another 4.4%. Then kind of your general government is the next highest expenditure that you budget for. And then you've got your protection, which is 1.8%, municipal maintenance, which is another 1.8%. And then kind of comprising the last 2% is going to be cemeteries, recreation, community services, and those miscellaneous expenditures there.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
This is Catherine Woodsum. Education's only 53%. Is that maybe supposed to be 73%?
Yeah, I was just looking at the chart, yeah.
Because this doesn't come up anywhere
You know what?
near 100%.
You are completely right. I'm so sorry. Yes.
And our tax bill
73%.
usually says like, this bill would have been lower, except you gave 73% to your schools.
And as you can see, it is a larger portion than just 50% of the pie chart. So sorry about that.
That's quite all right. Typos happen.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. Sorry for that. Going forward here, this is the next slide we have for you. And this is going to be really just the comparison of your budget to actuals for revenues and expenditures. And the actuals are going to be what we were just looking at when we looked at the revenue and expenditure breakdown before. And here we'll see that your total budget for revenues and expenditures was around $6.5 million. And when we're looking at this breakdown, it might look a little off for you just because we're seeing a larger amount expended than actually budgeted. But what this actually comes down to is something that we've had discussions with internally with the town manager, finance department, and it really comes down to how you're budgeting and how you are using the carry forward. So to kind of summarize this in an easy way, what we like to see typically in our general fund balances is not to have any carry forward or reserve amounts that are going to be used kind of as a long-term reserve account. So say, for example, you have $790,000, which you currently have in carry forward amounts. These can derive from road carryovers, beach, fire, whatever it may be. Majority of these are going to be capital projects. What we typically like to see is these actually held outside of the general fund in reserve accounts, either capital project reserves, special revenue reserves. And what this really does is it creates kind of a separation. So you have a better chance of budgeting accurately and really seeing the breakdown of a true operational cost for your general fund. So say, for example, we had $500,000 in a road reserve, and this was actually carried forward in the general fund as a committed fund balance. If we carried that forward, general accounting principles and governmental accounting principles really are stating those are intended, if they're carried forward in the general fund, to be used within the next year. Currently, what's happening is within the budget process, yes, you are budgeting to use some of those carry forwards, but the whole process is a little disjointed in the fact that not all of them are being budgeted for, and it's kind of the intent to carry those forward indefinitely. So I definitely recommend setting up a separate reserve account and really showing the expenditures for that specific reserve in that fund solely, so that we're not kind of commingling a capital project expenditure with the actual, say it's the road capital expense. We're not commingling that with the general operating road expense. And that will help you going forward budgeting for operational costs, and then also kind of really breaking down and seeing, okay, our reserve has this amount, we're going to spend it out of here instead of raising funds, or we are going to vote to transfer funds from our reserve to offset the budget. There are multiple different ways to kind of go about that, but that's really what you're seeing here. When you're looking and seeing, oh, we overspent by $312,000. This is something that, yes, maybe according to your budget was overspent, but you still had the reserve in your general fund assigned balances. They just hadn't been voted and approved yet to be used in the budget process. However, they were already approved, which is why we kind of get into that, you can't really compare apples to oranges situation. So we did actually have, if I'm not mistaken, last board meeting, an approval to use the remainder of the carry forward funds, not in entirety, but to cover this deficit balance and to make sure that we were not using, just the undesignated funds, that these reserve balances were actually being reduced for the undesignated funds. So it's definitely a complicated thought to think about when this is kind of something new, but we do have, a really great explanation that helps kind of explain the separation of the operating funds versus the carry forwards or reserve accounts. So if anyone has further questions, we're definitely happy to share that. And actually we have a meeting coming up with the town manager and the finance department to really go over kind of how this works and really trying to make it so that there is a really clear, transparent view of what is being budgeted for operations versus capital or special revenue projects. There's definitely not an issue as we note in an audit perception with the misallocation, but I think that internally, externally, it would be definitely beneficial to be able to separate those out. That being said, that's the end of the slideshow here. I'm gonna separate off of that real quick. Oh, there we go. So as I noted, there were a couple of things that we definitely would like to see improvement on, that kind of being around the budgeting process, really making sure that whatever reserve account or carry forward is implemented or in place, that there are policies and procedures and everything's very clear and transparent about how revenues, how expenses, how those are all going to be allocated towards those accounts and how they will be spent going forward, whether it's going to be through a budgeting process, whether it's going to be a transfer process, and how to go about that. I think that the town definitely has some great processes in place already. Reconciliations are looking good. A lot of good things going. So every year we really like to focus on some key points to work on for the next year. And I think that that's really going to be what we suggest for this year. But financially standing, the town is definitely in a good position.
Erica, we have a select board member, Catherine Woodsum, has a question for you.
Sure.
I'm not sure if it's actually for you, Erica, or for Eric, but what you were just speaking about at your conclusion that is what we authorized at our last meeting for you and Teresa to meet with the auditors, and then you're going to change the procedure so it meets with what they are suggesting.
Exactly, operational review and adjustment to make sure that we're all on the same page and transferring it is a different process. I mean, we do tend to use those reserve accounts as a piggy bank. And, one of the things that we had that was a big impact on this last budget was or this last audit was that the fire station and library project. You saw the cash on hand was pretty significant the year before, and then it went down because we expended a lot of those funds in the following year. Same thing with some paving work as well. So that it's a real thing, and it does create that very big visual in the graphs, but also in the numbers difference that makes it hard to see really what's going on the operational level. And that's exactly what Eric is saying. So we are in a complete agreement that we want to do that, make that change, and try to take a little bit different look at how those funds are managed.
Excellent.
Well, and I'm sure that's going to make Ralph Eno very happy.
Yes.
I think it will.
Absolutely.
I think he's on the call for some reason tonight.
Yeah,
or
he's
it's
probably
Penny,
listening
but
in. That's right.
Ralph might be back there too.
Anybody else on the select board? Carol, go ahead.
I have a question. Can I ask what budget item heat assistance comes out of? Is that under which like category?
Usually it's under undesignated or
That
in
big
the
dollar-
budget anyway. It's under undesignated.
That's a big dollar amount that you said was?
No.
No,
General
okay.
assistance is usually less. It's about $5,000, and we usually spend much less than that. 50% of it is a state match, so we offset 50% of that expense with revenue from the state. But we usually track it. It's almost a peripheral at the end of the budget process.
My only thought is I was surprised because I did see the dollar amount, like during COVID, we didn't get more requests. People losing jobs and such. I'm thinking the oil prices this winter. I don't know. I actually ran into somebody. I was on the phone with a veteran at work, and he was having trouble paying co-pays, and he started ranting about his heat. He happened to be a resident, and I'm like, I hung up the phone and went, why is he not calling the town of
Yeah,
Readfield? And I thought of
they
it the day
should.
later, and I couldn't think of
Yeah.
his name. So I don't know if there's something we can put out to say, if you're hurting, just know that you can call the town, because this guy was, keeping his heat down, and it was probably unsafe, and he was older. If there's anything we can put out there just to remind people that there is a town resource this winter.
Yes, absolutely. I know I share it on the Facebook page. Things go out in the messenger. So that's a good
I'm
point.
just thinking for seniors, they probably
Yep.
don't look at either of those. So I
Right.
don't know.
And
what else.
the messenger gets mailed to
Right,
everyone.
that's true. Okay.
And so, if we have to do, I have an item that I'm going to talk about later, but if we have to put a thing in the advertiser, that's fine too. But anything else related to the audit?
I guess I just want to say that I think I am interpreting this correctly, but I would just like you to reaffirm for me. The amount of taxes owing at the end of the fiscal year, which was June 30th, 2021, was lower than it had been the previous 2 years. It was about 180,000, which says that more people paid their taxes in the current year that they were due in than they had been previously.
Correct. Or that the lien amount was reduced as well, because we commingled for the financial statement purposes, liens, tax acquired properties, and taxes all together under the tax, that category.
That's great. I think that, I know we all worry about people who can't make it, as Carol was just saying, but that's a key indicator to me that people are financially healthy enough to be able to pay their taxes on time and not be risking foreclosure and liens, which is really good. But we do want those people who are struggling to get in touch. The problem with general assistance is the requirements are so stringent that virtually anyone who lives in Readfield doesn't qualify. The heating
And-
assistance program is under different levels. Is that correct, Eric? Our town heating assistance?
Yeah, we have a separate account for local heating assistance.
Right.
That's
And
correct.
so that's really great to bring up, Carol.
Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
And
Thank
also
you.
to kind of note on that as well, kind of talking about these reserve accounts that you have. So in your carry forward amounts, you do have, reserves there for the heating assistance, for the general assistance that had not been used in prior years that are carried forward. But if you also were to think about kind of using those and just making permanent reserves or special revenue accounts for them, those can also be kind of budgeted for annually to kind of start increasing and boosting. I see a lot of municipalities currently that will have a what they call a senior aid fund, reserve fund. And, it could be 500, it could be 1,000, 2,000 that they're budgeting annually to transfer into that fund. And if there is a need that comes up, if there's policies and procedures to kind of go and denote how those funds are going to be distributed, but then you'll see that those funds are in a separate account, always protected and expended out of that fund. So it's not kind of hurting your operating account for kind of any extras that you wouldn't assume, but that you kind of have that reserve there. And that really can be consistent with any reserve that you're talking about. So I think you'll definitely have some more information coming down the line after we all get together and share some information. So yeah, I think good things in the coming.
That's great.
Great. Anything else for Erica regarding the audit? Otherwise, we will let her exit.
That was probably the best audit presentation I've sat through.
Agreed.
good.
Congratulations, Erica. You did a great
Good.
job.
Well, if you have any
Um,
further questions, just reach out. Eric's got my email, so we're always around.
Awesome. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Erica.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Then we're going to keep moving. I just, we wrapped up public communication earlier, and I know that we have some new folks joining us, but I'm going to move on to our next agenda item unless I am told differently. What's that?
Appointments.
Yes, we're going to do that right now. In that case, we move. We have 15 minutes set aside for appointments, reappointments, and resignations. We begin with item 22-146, conduct the election of the Select Board Chair and Vice Chair. This is basically the chair and the vice chair, and I'll explain this later, but the chair and the vice chair meet with Eric to create our agenda for every item and every meeting. I am currently the chair. Catherine is the vice chair, but I would take a nomination for that if there is one on the floor for either place.
I'd make a motion for Dennis to be chair.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to elect myself as chair. I don't know, like Dennis, do I refer to myself in the third person? I don't know. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
I think this is a wonderful choice. You've done a great job leading us this past year, and I think this is affirming that.
Thank you very much.
And then he makes it fun.
Have to laugh. If there's no other discussion, all in favor? I'll vote for myself. Very well. It is unanimous. Then I would accept a nomination for vice chair.
I make a nomination for Catherine Woodson to be vice chair.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to select Catherine Woodson as the vice chair of the select board. Is there any discussion? Yes, I would like to say it has been I would like to say it's been a pleasure to work with you, and you have helped me, navigate this, and with effective help like yourself, this has been a really great experience. So I would say that. Anything else? All in favor? Very well. It is unanimous. Thank you very much for your trust. We move to item 22-147, which is to consider the appointment of select board members to the following positions: note taker and timekeeper. I'd like to mention this first of all, but let's talk about the other ones. Quarterly warrant reviewers, we split those up into 4 so that everyone can review the warrants and has a turn. Trails, recreation, and conservation representative, we're going to have a select board member at each of those committees. Solid waste and recycling committee representative, the age-friendly committee representative, comprehensive plan committee representative, the Readfield enterprise committee representative, and the board of assessors. I'd like to go back to the top. We talked about note taker and timekeeper. I would like to propose this. In the past, we have had notes be taken and shared. And what I would like to propose, if with more help with Eric, is like other municipalities around us, I would like to have a regular select board happenings section in the advertiser. Winthrop does it, Monmouth does it, and with all of the activity that happened regarding Readfield via the advertiser, I feel like this would be an excellent opportunity for the select board to have a direct reach outside of the minutes, but a direct reach to the people who are reading the advertiser. And like Carol said, not everybody gets the email or Facebook stuff. Not everybody gets the messenger, but everybody in town gets the advertiser. I would like to propose that. So whoever takes the notes, what I would say is those notes would go through Eric and then get distributed to the advertiser. Is that, Eric, how you would prefer that?
Oh, well, I'd prefer not to be
Involved?
directly
That's
involved.
okay. No, that's fine
But-
too.
but,
That's fine too. They can
but
come
I
to
think
me.
we can try it that way, and if it turns into something that's challenging, then we can try something different. Right?
Okay.
I'm always willing to try something.
Okay.
So let's do that.
I-
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Is
Kathy.
that something that maybe our secretary could do for us? I'm just thinking of the commitment level it's going to take from one of us to do this.
Then I volunteer. I would like to volunteer to take notes, and I would like
Never mind.
to volunteer to take notes, and I would like to volunteer to send those to the advertiser.
Boy,
I don't, that's not a motion, but I appreciate your support. Steve?
I was going to make it a motion and then get somebody to second it because it's a great idea.
Yeah,
Um,
I feel like it would be a really good responsibility of the chair. So I would take that on. We can talk about the cost. It is nominal.
Yeah, it is.
And I can get in touch with you in terms of that, but I know we have budget set aside.
And I think I was gonna be note taker this past year and I totally dropped the ball, so go for it.
That's okay. And it's not, certainly not an indictment of anything like that. I just feel like it is an important outreach for communication to the people in town.
Yep.
No, it's really important. I super appreciate you doing it because I was afraid that was going to be the new person's thing that I was going to get. And, and but I literally, I have great difficulty thinking and taking notes at the same
No
time.
worries.
It's one or the other. So I appreciate you
You
being.
got it. Absolutely. I will volunteer to do that.
I'd like to make a suggestion though, and I will volunteer to do this part, is to do sort of what Carol was going to do last year, but what Chris used to do, which is just making note of, Eric said he would do this before our next meeting. And so just, and the select board, Dennis said he would do this just so that we have a little list of who has said what they're going to do.
It's an informal way of remembering what happened.
Right.
Angelica does an incredible job with the minutes, but I also like a sort of non-informal kind of, hey, we did this, we talked about this. So that sounds good.
Okay.
All right, we'll work on it.
Yep, sounds good.
Can I say something on the
sure.
timekeeper part?
You absolutely can.
So I know we have for like public comment, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it
Mhm.
is. In my view, if someone from the public is talking and it goes on, I think we should welcome that and extend it if needed. I know, it can make the meetings go on, but I just hate for public comment to be shut down if something big is
Well,
going on.
I hear that. And I'll tell you, Carol, I've tried my hardest to accommodate as best we can. Certainly in the public meetings and the forums and things like that of that nature. I try to approach it as like anything with a little common sense. I agree with you. And I think the last time we talked about, having more time for whatever was going on, but I try not to cut it off. I'll do a good job, and I'd be open to feedback if that's something that when we get into the moments, if that happens. So rather than make something formal. Eric?
Yeah, I'll just say too that I think the board does a pretty good job with this. The agenda, the time recommendations, it's really like a budget. It's a time budget. So if the board wants to take a bit more time to handle one thing or another, I think that can absolutely happen. So these aren't intended to be, it's not that, we only want people to talk for 5 minutes during public comment. It's just that we usually only get one person who talks for 5 minutes or less. So it really is just a budget and it can be adjusted. Absolutely.
And that goes for anyone. If you ever feel like, I'd be responsive to that and things like that. I feel like we all of us have a pretty good sense of when things have come to a conclusion. So thank you for mentioning that, Carol. Now then, for quarterly warrant reviewers, this is when we come in, and it is important because a lot of the state revenues and things like that they are time sensitive. And so what we do is we will split these up into 3-month sections. And so I'd like to do that now if we can. Sean, you are done. Is that correct?
News to me, but sure.
Okay. Because we're starting a new,
There'll be one this week.
One more, yeah.
Okay.
But that's after.
but you're
tonight.
transitioning. So what we need to do is we need to come up with someone for July, August, and September.
I'd like to just keep rolling through the summer, if that's cool.
I have no problem with that.
If anybody's opposed, I know
Okay.
Catherine pinch hits for me when I might not be able to do the single one.
And
but-
just, I follow the Bruce Burgoyne doctrine, which is the chairman should be like the free agent. If they call me and they're like, Dennis, we need you, I'll come down. But I usually leave
Yeah,
this to you
I think-
guys. So you'll be done in September. We have September, so we have October, November, and December.
Can I just add something?
Yeah.
here? This is primarily for Steve. So
Yeah.
what this involves, so
Good.
when you're picking which quarter you want, is it involves coming in every second Monday to go through the big list of bills that are due that Teresa puts out, and you can match them up on a list to the actual bill in the folder. And it requires coming in every Thursday or possibly Friday to sign the state fees warrants, like all the boat registrations and snowmobiles and cars. That money gets sent into the state every week because they don't want to wait 2 or 3 or 4 weeks till they get their money.
And just like this evening, when you report out about them, what we try to do is take items of note, big expenditures, things that maybe in your review stand out, and sort of discuss those. There's no hard and fast, like you have to discuss this, but it is an opportunity for you to see, where everything's going. My general feeling on it is once we are asked to do review, it has already been checked by Eric and it has already been checked by Teresa. So there is a little bit of a, we assume they've done everything. They've check, double check. But by the time it comes to us, it's mostly just so that when we get in this meeting, we're familiar. So
And it's
just
our
be aware.
responsibility to approve those things. And so what we decided was, rather than having someone trying to do it while we're sitting in meetings, we have someone do it ahead of time. So we don't meet every other Monday consistently throughout the year. So 3 people need to sign it after it's approved. So Sean's going to do it for the next 3 months, and then we'll get an email from Teresa that says, I need people to come in and sign the warrant. It's been reviewed. And we only have to get to 3. And then the Friday warrant, Thursday, Friday one that's for the state only needs 1 signature because it's a state warrant thing, and that's how the policy was set up. So legally, whoever's doing it, Sean will sign that one. We don't all have to come in.
Got it.
And there'll be plenty of support for you, Steve. So
Yeah,
just
we'll do
know
it in a tutorial.
there's a whole thing. So we have fall, winter, and spring.
I'll take whichever one you guys don't want.
Anybody feeling October, November, and December? Thank you, Steve. That's great. I appreciate you signing up for that.
Not during ski season though, huh?
Is that?
That's what I was thinking. I was just thinking.
Well, is it ski season coming? That'd be the winter one, January, February, March. Does that, Carol, can you do that?
I'm just saying, I'm a pain in the neck to deal with on this because like I would call Eric and say, can you come unlock? Can I make arrangements?
Which is fine, of
It's very
course.
hard for me to get here, so I can take any, it doesn't, and they're all gonna be the same.
I'm going to do January, February, March for you.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Because I'm really, it's this bad.
Okay, then I'll do April, May, June.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah.
So you're going to get something else instead, Carol.
Yeah, that's right.
Steve, were those months okay for you? Or do you want this?
Since
spring
I'm
ones?
otherwise retired, other than ski coaching, that'll work fine.
Yeah, that's right.
If I was still teaching, that would be. an
That
issue.
would be a nightmare. Yeah, absolutely. So just to review, Sean, you are summer. Steve, you are fall, October, November, December. Carol, you are January, February, March. And
No, I thought
Catherine,
that was you.
Carol?
No, you. Didn't you say you were doing it?
No, he's the free agent.
I'm a
Oh,
free
then I
agent.
misunderstood.
I'm free aging it.
Oh, so what months am I?
January, February, March.
And then you're on call if I can't.
I'm on call if you can't.
I
Yeah,
get it.
That's the whole, yeah, I'm the free agent.
I thought you were just
We're
saying.
Okay,
going
so,
down.
so if you can't get here on time.
Call me, call D
Call
Price.
him and he'll do it.
I
Got
will.
Or call me. I live next door. I'll let
I
you.
know.
We've done it
Call me.
before.
I know where to
Don't
find
be
you.
afraid to just phone moi. Catherine, you are April, May, and June.
Yep.
Thank
And
you
I'm
so
writing
much.
these down so we'll all know.
Jawohl, I have it as well. Next up, Trails Recreation and Conservation Representative. I assume, but I know what happens with this. Sean, you would want to be this person?
Yeah.
Okay, very well. Sean, you will represent the Select Board at Trails Recreation and Conservation meetings if you so choose to go. Solid Waste and Recycling. Catherine, you have a long stated history with this. I would assume you would want to do that.
I would like to.
Anyone have any objections to that? Very well. We have an age-friendly committee representative. This committee, age-friendly committee, is a committee in town that helps to be proactive for aging Mainers and other folks in town, sponsoring activities and different things like that to help the older adults in our community. Is anyone willing to be, I believe Ralph Eno was our age-friendly committee member last time. That's no obligation just because he did it.
Right.
But I would welcome volunteers for the age-friendly committee.
Well, I was thinking that maybe Catherine would be the choice because she thought she was the oldest
That is
serving
a
board
good
member, but
point.
apparently it's me.
Yeah.
So I think I would be the logical choice.
That's
and I'd be
wonderful.
glad to
Steve,
do
thank
that.
you very much
Yes.
for stepping up to do that. We appreciate it.
Do you know how to make my screen go smaller?
I do.
Now, see, that sounds like
Oh.
something that an aging person might need to ask someone else.
Control minus.
Off to you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Very well then. Thank you, Steve. You are our age-friendly representative. In the past, I have been the Comprehensive Plan Committee representative. And
I'd like you to continue.
okay.
Anybody else?
I'd be interested in that one.
Okay.
I was on enterprise committee. There was nothing happened all year. Right? Which is why I'm putting businesses up on the post office. I'm like, let's get this going. I don't know. The enterprise committee had nothing to do. I don't know.
Should that be?
Well, the committee was set up to not be an economic development board per se. It's to help administer those grants and,
Okay.
and
Just
the, and the
none
loans.
Okay.
We just didn't have anybody apply for a loan.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah, which makes it a little bit boring.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I-
Well, I don't mind continuing the comprehensive plan unless, and Carol, I'll tell you something. How about a back scratching arrangement? If I can't make it to a meeting, would you go to a comprehensive plan? So you and I can kind of be the team, the dream team.
Sure.
I appreciate that. Then my question would be the Readfield Enterprise Committee. Do you still want to do that just in case, sort of just by de facto?
Sure.
And then Steve, I'm going to look at you for this one because I want to tell you that we are myself, Carol and Ralph prior to you were the Board of Assessors. The Board of Assessors works with our assessing agent to do things like arrange for abatements of taxes, things like committing the tax rate. I have to say, in a very weird kind of appealing way, Board of Assessors is one of my favorite things to do because David Ledoux, who is our assessing agent, is very smart, very articulate, and can make these issues. It's really a great way of helping citizens. Sometimes things, tax breaks, homestead exemptions that should have been, for whatever reason fell through, you're able to give those back. So just an opportunity, but certainly not an obligation, Steve, if you don't want to start off with too much. But I would like to be back on the Board of Assessors, if that's okay.
That's good for me.
Good. It's up to
I
you,
will.
Carol. You want to do that?
Yeah, I
Okay.
found that interesting.
That sounds good. And then I'll leave it. If any of the other three want to be a Board of Assessor, let me know. But it's fun.
Well, I have to say that on the surface,
Yeah.
the name does not make it sound all that much fun.
Yes.
But
Yes.
you seem to really think it's fun.
It's
So
a
I'm
really
It's interesting. I
it's
wouldn't say
really
fun.
great way
Well,
of seeing
yeah,
how the
okay.
sausage is made, Steve. Especially when it comes to
Ooh.
like mill rate. People ask you about, oh, well, why is the mill rate? And then as the Board of Assessors, you know exactly what the deal is. So I like it just because it gives you a little bit more data to drive with.
Well, I'm willing to do that despite the fact I'm not really fond of the how the sausage is made analogy.
Oh, yeah.
I
okay,
really
yeah.
don't want to
You're
know
not a
how the sausage
vegetarian,
is
are you?
made. while I'm
Okay, yeah,
eating it,
okay. Just making
So-
sure. They're vegans.
But I think
Um,
the assessing thing is another
that
story.
sounds
So
good.
I'll be glad. to-
Kale is grown.
Yes, how the kale is grown. So then what we'll do is we'll look at Carol, Dennis, and Steve to be our Board of Assessors. Excellent. And Steve, those meetings are as needed. So if we ever have a Board of Assessors meeting, it's generally a half hour before the beginning of one of our select board meetings. Excellent. I believe we have taken care of item 22-147. Thank you very much. If there's any objection, say it now, or otherwise we will go to item 22-148. Consider the reappointment of Eric Dyer to the positions of Town Manager, Road Commissioner, Treasurer, Tax Collector, Freedom of Information Act Officer, and Welfare Administrator.
I'll make a motion to reappoint Eric Dyer to the positions of Town Manager, Road Commissioner, Treasurer, Tax Collector, FOAA Officer, and Welfare Administrator for the period from July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the nomination of Eric Dyer to his various roles. As a point of information, which I can do according to the rules, point of information on this, it may seem like Eric has a lot of different things going on and a lot of titles, but really this is sort of an amalgamation of his job as town manager. He does all of these things anyway. So it's not like he's concentrating all of the power. It's certainly in his day-to-day work, it makes the workflow more efficient and more common sense based. So if anyone had any questions about that.
Just one question, comment. We do have a backup FOAA officer though, isn't there? Because of
Yes.
due to the time constraints associated with any of
Yeah,
those
so
requests.
I'll touch on that one, and it really applies to the rest of them. I've got a great staff.
Oh,
And they do a lot of this work. I'm the one that's responsible ultimately for making sure things happen appropriately when it comes to the, the tax billing and the finance and all of that. But no, we definitely, all of these things, we have a great team. Everybody works together. It's oftentimes shared multiple directions. So, and FOA is just one of several of those titles that really, it really happens because of the staff. So.
Perfect.
If there's no other discussion, all in favor? Very well, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 22-149 is to consider the reappointment of Karen Peterson as the transfer station manager. Karen is with us tonight. I would accept a motion.
I make a motion to reappoint Karen to the transfer station manager for a period effective July 1 through June 30th, 2023.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to appoint Karen Peterson as the transfer station manager. Is there any discussion? Thank you very much for everything you do. I feel like we have the best transfer station in the area. You heard me say it.
I have a comment. I think
Go
Eric
ahead.
does too. You can go
I
first.
just wanted to make sure you got your chance. That's
Oh,
all.
yeah.
Oh, as chair of the Solid Waste and Recycling Committee, which I'm sure they'll leave me as so that no one else has to write agendas. That is how it goes. Karen has done an outstanding job this year, doing work for the town of Readfield, which is also for the towns of Fayette and Wayne. The reorganization of the physical facility, ideas for increased safety, improved traffic flow, the incredibly professional manner in which Karen addresses the public and deals with different issues that arise, whether they're with the public or with vendors or with employees. She's very fair and reasonable, and the entire board is very supportive of Karen staying in that position.
There's no other discussion. All in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you, Karen, very much. Our next item is 22-150. This is to consider the reappointment of Lee Mank as fire chief.
Make a motion to appoint Lee Mank as fire chief for a period of July 1, 2022 to June 30th, 2023.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to appoint Lee Mank as our fire chief. Is there any discussion?
I would just like to thank Lee for continuing to do a great job for the town of Readfield. He represents us well. The department received an incredible grant I don't know if it was a grant, it was an appreciation check of $10,000 for superb service that they had at a particular call. I don't believe we've had any complaints about the department in the past year, and they've worked so hard through the pandemic, through some very trying issues, and Lee's always held his head high and done a great job for the town.
Absolutely. Eric?
I also want to chime in and say thanks to both Karen, of course, for her fantastic work, but also to Lee for his leadership. I mean, it was a difficult time. We did get some complaints about the department, but it was related to the pandemic. We had some challenging things, but he is an excellent leader, has the support of the folks that work under him. And it's one of the most important positions we have, and he does it very, very well. He's one of the best fire chiefs I've had the pleasure of working with. I'm really hoping that he continues to be nominated by the department to continue in that role as he has been for the last several years. So, yeah.
Very well. All in favor? Thank you very much, and thank you, Lee. We move to old business. Item number 22-119 is discuss the upcoming Heritage Day celebration in August.
I'm really sorry, but I think I goofed. Did I don't think there was any mention of the land use ordinance thing. That was way up top, wasn't it?
Yeah, we already did that.
But I didn't realize that was on that part of the agenda. Because Karen went and then we went to something else.
Yeah. Eric explained the changes, the septic change, the
Broad strokes discussion on it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Man, I was doing, I don't know what.
Yeah.
So
now's the time.
correct, sorry. Where did the one thing on the ballot about the, should pass or approve a project except unless absolutely necessary, where did that come from? I don't know the origins of the change of that.
The specific language, I'm sorry, it was relating to,
Like the planning board should approve a project unless it was absolutely necessary not to. And I don't know where that started. It's still kind of vague wording, but I know it was on the vote or it was on the warrant.
I think it was something to do with not having anything be unreasonably denied, which is a reasonable expectation.
Right.
So if that's the language you're talking about, I think it was just around that, some of that ambiguity and just being clear that the planning board isn't trying to stonewall anybody, never has, never will. But they will follow the process. And if there's a reason to deny, they will. If there's no reason to deny, they don't have a right to. I think that's what that comes down to.
Okay, I'm just saying, this does not come from one person. This comes from a lot of people. There's been a lot of projects that have gone through, I think, unreasonable scrutiny. There was something that was also going to be changed in that the CEO does not make the preliminary determination. So is that no longer something that's going to happen? It was like point number 1, that the current land code enforcement officer makes preliminary determinations whether an applicant is complete. The proposed change allows applicant to move past the CEO.
Yeah, so
Now-
we had a couple of situations where the applicants did not submit complete packages. They submitted incomplete information. And so the determination of whether a package is complete really is and remains the purview of the code enforcement officer. However, if an applicant comes back 3 or 4 times and continues to not provide enough information or complete information, then the planning board does have the ability to say, let's just get you in here. We'll hear what you have to say, and then we'll tell you what's missing. Because we were criticized at one point, the planning board and the code officer, for not hearing incomplete applications. And whether that's a wise use of time, I have questions about that, but the change allows for the planning board to say, well, you don't necessarily have to have a 100% complete application to come and talk with us about your project, but that discretion would be left up to the planning board. So in some ways, that's actually, it is a response to applicants saying that they felt they were being stopped at the gate. What that change effectively does is give some flexibility for the planning board to say, well, even though this isn't 100% complete, we can talk about it with you. That's essentially what that change does.
I guess my question is, so if the CEO isn't the first step and people,
He's still the first step.
he is?
Yes.
Okay, I thought that said
Yeah,
it's no
he's-
longer a requirement to go there first.
He's still the first step,
Okay.
but before we didn't have a mechanism to bypass an incomplete application, right? We didn't have a way for the planning board to say, well, we're going to hear something that's only, 30% filled out. I'm being egregious, but now if the code officer says, well, look, they just keep bringing in the same information over and over again. It's not complete. We'll move it on. The planning board will look at it and then they can decide either the way they want to deny it or try to figure out what the holdup is or the problem. This is a way to kind of allow us to get past that and have the planning board review something. I mean, what would happen likely is if someone came in with a 75% complete application, it would get denied because it's incomplete. But that might be a better way than to have somebody keep hammering at the door saying, why won't you let me in?
So it seems more inclusive, is what
Yeah,
you're saying.
yeah,
Now
exactly.
it's more inclusive because they can listen to it. Okay,
Yeah.
I was confused too.
Yeah.
so.
Okay, and then I just heard from one person that said, my only request is that all applicants be treated equally and hearings be in person, which I think we're going to get to that later.
Yeah.
And just to reiterate, there's a meeting on Thursday at 2:00, I believe, at the town office from somebody that wanted the select board to listen to his plight with the planning board. So, and I think I'm in attendance and I don't know if anybody else wants to go.
Oh, I hadn't heard that. That wouldn't be really appropriate to have you in attendance. I think it would be best if it was the town manager and the code officer and the applicant.
Right.
I'm
'Cause-
just saying, I heard that when I was at the last meeting and I was remote, that
Mm.
it's really not our place. I'm a select board person. I am also a resident of this town and I have heard from a year ago when I was campaigning, totally unsolicited. I just said, so what's going on in Readfield you want to talk about?
Mm.
A very prominent business person that grew up in this area and has had businesses for over 20 years says, I have had 5 or 6 things come in front of the planning board and they always try to find one reason to deny me rather than a reason to approve me. And this was before I even stepped foot on the planning.
I want to just,
No, no.
if this is about the planning board, that's a different discussion. If this is about what we're talking about in terms of the land use ordinance, then that's a different thing. We can have a conversation about the planning board, but I have to be perfectly honest with you. It's very unusual for that. We are not the sort of big brother that pressures the planning board into doing anything. So it doesn't matter if we're the select board or not. Doesn't matter if you and I are there. Doesn't matter if all 5 of us are there. It is not our place to be at that meeting.
Is
And
it-
I'm just gonna reiterate that vehemently.
I disagree.
Well,
And
it's a separate organization. The planning board is doing their work, and to make judgments on what the planning board is doing right or wrong is not our place.
I'm not making judgments.
Good.
I'm hearing a resident who has a dispute.
Yes, and it
and
seems like
giving
that
him-
resident is not wanting to hear what the planning board is saying, hoping they will say something
The
different.
planning board is asking him to move his property 25 feet back in contrary to the EPA, who said we do not recommend that.
The planning board doesn't do anything because the select board
Asking
says
to
that.
sit in on a meeting from a resident.
I
of
leave that up to
something-
Eric. I don't think that's
It's
appropriate.
not one individual. It's
that's
several.
fine. It's okay. But that we seem to have a lot of individuals in town who don't want to listen to the rules. And if they want to just hear something different, doesn't matter how much money they pump in or how many prominent businesses they own, they still have to follow the rules.
Let me tell you one other thing I've heard.
Please.
In more than one place. Contractors, if you leave a message on their phone and they are saying they're doing a project in Readfield, I have been told they will not return the call
That's
they don't.
anecdotal and we have no proof of that, right?
over and over again.
Catherine?
I'm just saying, there's a problem and it needs to be addressed and changed.
That's,
I've been recognized. May I speak, please?
Please.
Yes, you
go ahead.
may.
Thank you. So according to state law and the organization of towns under a town manager system, the planning board is a quasi judicial entity of the town and they are separate from the select board. Neither interferes in the other's business. So it's inappropriate for any select board member or for the select board to in any way oversee a meeting that is planning board business. Now, I would assume that any resident of this town, whether they sit on a board, a committee, or commission, can attend any public meeting as a resident, but has no right to represent any board, committee, or commission that they sit on, and cannot speak for any other part of that board, committee, or commission during any said meeting. So if there's a private meeting taking place, I would assume that any citizen would have to be asked by the people for that meeting. I assume that people often meet with the town manager or the code enforcement officer to discuss issues. I'm not sure those are considered public meetings. They don't need notice or anything. Is that correct?
They're not. And Carol, I appreciate your interest in trying to resolve this issue. I absolutely do.
It's not one issue. Let me reiterate. It's not one individual. It's not one issue.
Well, and I've heard that before too, but I also know that Bob Bitar has had a lot of problems with the town of Readfield. And
it's
a
not
lot of
Bob.
Understood. Yeah.
okay, just wanted to clarify that. I mean, it's hard to, anonymous criticism is really hard to address. I would love to speak to this business owner that you're referencing
Steve
because
Vorpagel, who said I can share his name. I don't normally share names of people that give me anecdotes. I
Sure.
talked to him today and he said, feel free. I don't,
Yeah.
he's very,
I'm just
He's had
surprised, I'm
lots of
surprised by
wins.
that name because Steve has not been in my office to talk about a project since I've been here in the
he
last
said
7
if
years.
anybody wants to talk to him about his past, he's welcome to.
And I'm happy to do that. And because I do want to resolve these things. I want to move forward. I want to improve our process. You know, we're all working towards that goal, right? It just makes it challenging when you have overlap. So we can talk about that meeting later, Carol. I think that's probably the most appropriate way to do it because I don't want to see this meeting get
Yeah, I just want to
Push
get
the
back to
wrong
the
direction.
agenda. Yeah, absolutely.
I want to improve the process, but I want to improve the reputation of our town.
absolutely, yeah.
Which is my concern, not the process. The process is the process, but we have a reputation that is, if you're not in, I mean, this is news to me until I came on this board. I don't deal with planning boards and stuff, except when I was going to open our business and I went, oh God, planning board. I bet this is going to go on for months and we won't be able to do this. And I pulled out, I go, okay, Chip, I'm up. I pulled out a approval from February 2000 within 2 meetings and maybe even one. We got an approval for our bed and breakfast. That's the way
That's good to hear.
Maine should be.
Yeah,
But it's,
yeah.
it seems to be favoritism. There's certain people that will get, and again, I'm off.
I
Okay.
think we've had
Go
enough,
ahead.
Carol. I think we've had enough
Okay.
because I don't want to hear any more
Okay.
something bad about the planning board. We're done with that. We're going to discuss Heritage Days, which is now back on the agenda. Yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Item 22-119, we have 5 minutes to discuss the Heritage Days celebration coming up in August. I can do that because I am the chairman. Heritage Days is Friday, August 12th, and Saturday, August 13th. As it has been in the past, the Historical Society at 5 o'clock on Friday kicks things off with their annual wine and cheese social / meeting. This is an awesome time. If you have not been to the Historical Society, it's an awesome time for you to become a member of the Historical Society. For $100, you can become a lifetime member of the Historical Society. You get a chance to go in and see some great Readfield history. You get a little flyer in the mail as well. And so there's a lot of different things going on there. It's a great time, a great place. Check it out, 5 o'clock Friday, August 12th. It goes until 7 p.m. Still up in the air about the sock hop. We're still working with Catherine on that, but that would happen Friday night. On Saturday, as we have before, we kick things off with our Mason's Breakfast, which is in the Mason Hall above the mail post office. It is delicious. Ed Dodge and his merry band of Masons are up there, and it is fantastic to see them. And just start your day off right. There are going to be numerous things happening throughout the town during that time. In the morning, there's going to be a book sale at the fire department, sponsored by the community library. There's going to be an open house business in Carol's front yard of her bed and breakfast. There's going to be a history walk hosted by Dale Potter Clark, and she's going to take people around town and do a history walk. The rec department is sponsoring the kickball tournament. It returns after a year's hiatus, and so there will be a cash prize to the winner, and the kickball tournament will happen again. During that time, there's also going to be makers down at the beach. There's going to be some music at the beach and a couple raffles. There's going to be a fundraiser with a dunk tank at the beach, so that should be fun, as well as the presentation of the Spirit of America Awards. Those will happen there as well. In the evening and afternoon, I haven't talked to Lee yet about the bean supper, but that has happened in the past. We're going to confirm that. And then in the evening, it's around 9 o'clock, a little bit after, will be fireworks happening right at the beach. Due to that, I'm going to say it now, and there's going to be plenty of notices that go out. We are asking folks to please wrap up activities at the beach. No swimming, nothing like that, by 5 p.m. It gives the folks who have all of the explosives, the clearance that they need, and the safety measures that they have to have in order to set up our display. So 5 p.m. on Saturday, the beach will close, and then around 9:15, we will watch big boom booms in the sky for Heritage Days. Encourage anyone who's listening, get on your boat. There is a nice view out there from the water in Maranacook. We get in touch with the Lake Association as well to talk about that. But Heritage Days, August 12th and 13th. You can find out more information by following our Facebook page, Heritage Days on Facebook. You can also find out more information in this upcoming edition of The Messenger, which will be coming out in the beginning of the month. Please get in touch with me, Price at readfieldmaine.org. If you have any questions, Price at readfieldmaine.org.
Are we going to have any food trucks?
There will be food.
Okay.
Whether it's in truck form, we're still figuring that out. We move now to item 22022, consider remote meeting by town boards and committees. This is the remote meeting policy I think that we have talked about before. If we want to sort of discuss this for Steve, I'll give you a background. During the pandemic, in order to make official our meetings, we adopted a remote meeting policy. The remote meeting policy basically states that meeting via Zoom, or if someone is unable to make it, or for whatever health reasons they can't make it, they can use Zoom. All town meetings like this provide a Zoom link to operate. And we wanted to talk about this. Carol, this was your item on the agenda. I'll let you talk about it.
Okay, I think we, as a select board earlier in the year when COVID somewhat became under control, we're strongly encouraging, and maybe even requiring, I guess that's part of this discussion, committee personnel to be in attendance at meetings live, unless they had an urgent issue, a physical or illness or temporary absence, or they were traveling. The reason I brought this up, again, there's a particular committee that has still nobody attends a live meeting. It's quite disturbing. I think this is the committee that has to be in person. Someone I know has gone before this committee 7 times and have met one person in person. And to be even more absurd, there was a site visit to this property. Members of the board and the committee came to the property, all got in their cars and drove home to Zoom. Now, that's crazy to me. these people have to live in Readfield. I can't imagine their drive was more than a couple of minutes, 5 minutes. And still, just a couple weeks ago, everybody on this committee has been remote. I think there's zero reason for that. I think if you're going to make a commitment to a committee, you have to be in person. That committee looks at architectural plans. The one that I saw, I was looking at a meeting, Chip needed to, someone said, I don't have that document. And he's holding a picture of an architectural plan up to the television screen or it's just like absurd and it's rude and it's not efficient. And then when the nuts and bolts came to like a vote, people got disconnected. I understand there's a reason from time to time to be remote for a meeting. I understand that. I think it's the exception. I do not think it's a rule. And I'd like to know what we do as a town if they don't do that or they refuse to do that or continue to do that.
Go ahead, Catherine.
I think that any discussions we have of this really ought to be dealt with specifically and not in generalities. I think when there are situations that arise, we need to deal with a particular situation and not be so general. I detested being in faculty meetings at school. Well, if everyone would just keep their attendance timely every period, we would know where the students are. Well, 98% of the staff was doing that, but we all got scolded for the 2% who weren't. And I don't think that's the appropriate way to handle things. I'm not sure that doing it publicly is the appropriate way either. So I'll let you know that I know there are at least 2 committees who are not meeting with people in physical attendance. So this is not something specific to a committee. I think it's pretty clear, and I actually wasn't remembering this the way that it's written from our discussions, but it does say that this is what we wrote and approved. Members of any public body, elected and appointed officials, are expected to be physically present for public proceedings, except when being physically present is not practicable. And there were 3 conditions listed, an emergency or an urgent issue that came up. So rather than being absent, allowing somebody who something came to light at the last minute, they could call in on the Zoom call. Illness, other physical conditions, people who have significant difficulties traveling, or if your geographic characteristics impede or slow travel. So it's pretty specific. So this really says to me that the select board is asking people to be present physically, unless you have something unusual that came up. For instance, Carol, last meeting, 2 weeks ago, you met with us via Zoom because you were traveling. And I will note that we had a couple hundred pages of documents. So I don't really see that there's a problem with people being able to access the information. I think we've done a great job in being able to put things online and have them available for people. I think it worked very smoothly from my perspective, sitting here with you in the meeting last time. So, I think people need to follow the policy that we set. Mm-hmm. And if we just want to say that everyone can meet remotely any old time they want to, then we need to change this policy to say that. And if we are not going to change the policy to say that, then the expectation is that people will meet in physically being present. What we didn't address in this is what we were going to do if that didn't occur. And so this is one of those things where we made a policy, but there's no way to enforce it. And so maybe we don't really, we have to have a policy by state law to have remote meetings. So we did have to make this. But if we're going to require this, we need to make it the role of the committee chair to report to someone, the town manager, that people aren't meeting. And will this cause people to then resign because they're feeling pressured to come? Will you have enough of a body to have a quorum. There are a lot of issues here.
Eric?
Yeah, I'll just say quickly that I think it is important for people to meet in person, absolutely, if at all possible. I think that this policy says that. Where I run into trouble is trying to, make a decision about whether that's
Yeah.
the case or not.
Yeah.
But I will volunteer to speak with all of our boards and committees, the chairs, and if the membership, if I have to just strongly encourage them to get back to meeting in person, because it is a better way. I really wish it would be all one or all the other. The hybrid meetings are much more challenging for everybody, having some people present and some people remote. But that's something we just need to learn to live with. And we've done a good job of adapting. We have a nice media cart and a camera system that we can use that most board and committee chairs and members can plug that thing in and make it work. And that's good. I totally understand the concern about having people either crowded in a small room downstairs, just, or a small empty room downstairs. But I'll take some ownership of this one if you would let me to reach out directly to the chairs and give a bit of a nudge.
Well, I wonder if
And,
it can also just be a key element of our chairs meeting that we have to schedule this
Yeah.
summer. So
We
Yeah,
should
I agree.
definitely address
I-
it then,
I
but I
will-
think before then, letting Eric
Before
Yeah.
handle it would
like
be.
Yeah.
this week.
Yeah,
Good
let him
idea.
talk to it. My only thing is, I am in no position to judge why someone may miss a meeting. Whether they miss a meeting because they have an ingrown toenail or because they have COVID, it's not my place to judge any of that. I also know that anyone involved in planning board meetings gets information at least 2 weeks in advance.
Let's say maybe a week.
A
in
week.
advance, a week in advance.
So I know that there's an advancement. So passing judgment on why people miss meetings, I'm not going to do that. We sign the policy, follow the policy. I think Eric making the note to get in touch with people and say, hey, listen, this is what we want. But and I've said this from the beginning, Zoom is a really great tool to get people to be involved, whether it's passive or active or not. And it's to resist it or to fight it, I think is resisting what is a very clear state of reality that not everyone feels comfortable coming out, or other people have medical issues that keep them from it.
Okay.
So hang on. So my point is, if what we want to do is start saying, well, I don't believe you, or I don't think that's true, I think that's a slippery slope, because I don't want to pass judgment on why people are missing. I just want them to do their job. And it seems that the job of the boards and committees, to me, is still moving on and is still happening. So that's my only thing I would say.
Let me just say, when I was remote, I was disconnected several times, and someone's in the middle of saying something important like, oh. And what is even more absurd, if somebody actually was Zooming because they were afraid of COVID, the people in attendance, instead of being in this nice big room, were down in the room we just were, cheek to cheek,
Yeah.
which was crazy. So
And nobody in the planning board was there, right?
Nobody,
Yeah.
but why were we in a shoebox and allowing them to be in the time of COVID if that's why they're staying home? And there's 5 people.
You could have the meeting up here too, I
You
guess.
can't, we
Yeah.
all were sitting up here going, where's all the plant,
Mhm.
where's everybody? And they
Yeah.
were down in the room and we were shocked they were downstairs.
Yeah.
Plus, if these people are out in public, working, grocery shopping, going to restaurants, but they can't come to a meeting where we're all socially distanced because it's inconvenient, I have a problem with that.
Well, we don't know
whole
that,
attitude.
right? I mean, we're passing
5
judgment on that.
people
We're
have never been to a meeting.
understood, but again, it's the policy. They're able to do that. And the efficacy of that committee is still moving forward.
Not that committee.
But
When-
the efficacy, it is moving forward, Carol. I don't want to argue about
Okay.
the planning board anymore because
Okay.
clearly it's an issue, but I just want them to know that I support them. So that's why I want to say that. So if we need to get Eric to send the letter, we can do that and make sure they know. But as far as I'm concerned, if they all meet in remotely, it's their right. Does that make sense, Eric?
It does, and I guess the one point I'll add is it is up to every individual to make that determination. So the folks that were there in person were there because they chose to be.
Mhm.
The folks that were absent were there because, or were not there because they chose to be. So I don't want to put it in the black and white and say, well, we were here, where were you?
Mhm.
I understand that it's better to have people in person, and I completely agree with that. And so I'll put the word out that
Thank
we're
you.
wanting to do that again.
That's great. Catherine?
So in listening to everything, including myself on this, I'm not sure if I'm hearing that we want to revise this policy or not, because this policy is saying that we are expecting people to be present unless they have other issues. So I would be very dismayed to hear say that this board went out for a site visit to tour the fire station, and then we all went home and sat on our screens to have our actual business meeting. I would be disappointed in us if we did that. But also, so do we want to just say that remote attendance at any time is allowable? Because I think that's what you just said.
It certainly seems that way.
And if that's what we want to say, then we have to change this document. So I guess I would ask that we say 2 meetings from now, or let's just put this out to be part of our retreat.
Mhm.
Let's see how it goes between now and then. And if there, what the feedback Eric gets from boards and committee chairs is. And at that time, let's talk about it, because if it's not something that can happen, I don't want to see our committees and boards disintegrate because we've done something that's going to cause people to not want to participate. And I also think it's really important that committees not feel that the public environment is toxic and might be keeping them from wanting to be at a meeting. We certainly dealt with some issues ourselves on the select board with feeling very attacked by citizens, which is why we have our standards of conduct, so that we all remember that it's not personal. It's not supposed to be directed at any one person. It's the board as a whole. But that takes really big shoulders for people to do. And there may be some of that at play in these different committees that feel that they're under intense scrutiny and it's more comfortable to not be in person.
Yeah.
So I think it falls on our shoulders to give Eric some time for this and then to revisit it and see what we come up with.
Yeah.
Does that work for everybody?
Absolutely.
But it either has teeth or it doesn't,
Yeah.
the way it's written.
Right, the way
It
it's
should.
written,
Right.
it should be
And,
allowed.
Who's going to be the principal who gives the note of acceptance to me for not being present? I agree with Dennis. I don't think we want to go there. So we need to write a better policy.
I don't want to be,
Well, I think
discouraging
that-
anyone.
I think the chair sets the expectation.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I think that's good. If there's nothing else, we have a resolution. We move on to new business. I'm going to do 22-151 right now. We've already done 152. And hopefully it will
Is Hannah here for something?
go. Yeah, Hannah, do you have a? Okay, that sounds good. That sounds good.
Okay.
I just want to make sure we get that. All right, if you look in your packet on page 40, this is some information here that Eric has included about the select board. And basically, Steve, this is going to be a little bit for you.
A little bit for me, or a lot of
you,
it
but
for me.
also For Carol and Sean, we didn't do a formal one of these. I took time in a meeting, but I think it's really good to go through and remind everyone of the various things that we have to do. On page 40, we see the very hierarchy that we had alluded to before, and each of these has a color code. You can see that on the far left, you have the school board and select board, which are elected positions. The select board and underneath has the different appeals. You can see Board of Appeals, the Planning Board, which is a quasi-judicial appointed board. The Board of Appeals is the same way. And then you can also see the various pieces that branch out. This is on page 40, if you haven't gotten there. But you can see how each one of these little boxes has a flow and they have a responsibility. Hold on to this. I think it's a great resource because when we start talking about things like the town clerk and the deputy tax collector, where it all sort of mingles in there. So that's something that I think is really important. Eric, is there anything else you'd like to add about the hierarchy?
Sure.
Okay.
This really is a organizational hierarchy. I'll point out that a number of these positions are held by the same person, right? Just like with me. I was able to pretty clearly show that right on the right-hand side, the flow of titles that I have, and then the deputies that are appointed. But for example, at the bottom of the center column there, we have the code enforcement, E911 addressing officer and the health officer. Those are all currently held by the same person. It makes good sense to do that because those things are related and it's efficient to manage it that way. But this is really showing that, who reports to whom and how. And I will point out that the animal control officer is listed twice. And actually the one on the left-hand side, Catherine had brought that up. I changed it to say constable because we also have a constable, which is another quasi law enforcement position that's actually unfilled and has been for a while now, but that's a whole other topic. But this hierarchy, it just shows how things flow. And to a discussion we had earlier, the planning board and board of appeals both are quasi judicial boards that are appointed by the select board, but there should be a little bit of separation.
Yeah. So hold on to that hierarchy. What I'll then do is direct you to page 41 and 42 of your packet. I'm not going to read through these, but I'm just going to kind of hit the highlights that I think are important. You can see the purpose and scope makes pretty fair sense, but I want to go to number 2, core responsibilities. The responsibilities of the select board are included, but not limited to, oversight of town finances and property, protection of health and safety and welfare of town residents, and facilitation of appropriate relationships with public service providers and external agencies and other government agencies. The essential part of this, I think, is important to remember is the select board is finances and rules. We help to create those, to make sure and administer those, but that's it. We are not the executives of the town. We are basically administrators of the town. 2.2, the select board administers its responsibilities by hiring. We do our hiring and retaining the town manager, but that goes without saying. Members are pretty self-explanatory. We all got here. You can see 3.3, no member may represent the board or assume individual authority outside the regular order of board proceedings without the board's prior approval. And you can see other issues as well. Number 4, officers, we've already done that. And you can see that the chair and the vice chair will work with Eric to make the agendas and to come in. If for whatever reason I can't be here, Catherine would preside. And if whatever reason we both can't be here, who knows what will happen. If you go down to 4.5 is a good one to look at for the Board of Assessors. The assessors come from the Select Board. We've already done that. And we also have our meetings. We're going to schedule our meetings. In the summer, we try to skip a few meetings. We try to make sure our business is less. So we try to do at least once a month, and we have that schedule. We'll share that here in a moment. You can see how sometimes we may ask for a workshop meeting. A workshop meeting is basically a chance for us to discuss, explain, and look at other issues that we may get in a meeting, in a regular meeting that we want to have more discussion about. The retreat that we will do is technically a workshop, but we set our goals and things of that nature there as well. We just got out of an executive session. You can see that. We have all of these various pieces. I don't want to keep reading through it. You understand. But simple majority rules in this particular instance. And I'm going to stop and ask if anybody has any questions. Yes, Catherine.
Somewhere in here, it did say something about our trainings. I believe.
Oh, I'm just about to get to that.
Okay.
All right. One of the things as new board members, one of the things that you are expected to do is to take two different trainings. The one training, it's all offered by MMA, and these are able to be scheduled with Eric, and you can take care of it through him. The FOAA is Freedom of Access and Information Act. Basically, anything you write or type during our meetings is fair game. If you have doodles or something like that, that could be Freedom of Information acted. So that's important for you to know as a town select person. What's that? The other one is the MMA Select Board Orientation, which is a great program. I went through that. It basically just gives you an idea of things you can and can't do as a select board, and member especially. And so I highly recommend those. In fact, I think we require you to have those. I think Sean and Carol have gone through those.
I highly require you.
Yeah, I highly require you to do that. But really, it's just gonna help a lot when it comes to knowing some of these things.
So I just set that up with Eric.
Yes,
correct?
sir.
Okay.
That is correct.
And are we still required to do the NIMS training?
NIM is something I don't believe so. I think that they may have relaxed that requirement. I'll check with Lee.
Yeah.
Okay, because it is in 3.4.
It is, okay.
We didn't talk about it when the three of us met.
Yeah.
So if it's required, we need to make
I
sure that we
will
list
check.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, National Incident Management. Gotcha.
Yeah,
That's so we understand what our role is in a disaster.
I think we take care of that when we do the annual review of the emergency operations plan, but I'll check with Lee and make sure there's not a
Right.
separate type of review that's required.
Gotcha. And we've already done that, Steve, so you'd catch it on the next time we review it. The next thing I want to talk about are select board roles and responsibilities, boards. We did that, all town ordinances, warrant procedures. I want to go through that.
Can we go back?
Yeah, what do you need?
So the boards, committees and
Oh, yeah, you wanna
commissions
talk about that?
procedures.
Yeah.
Is that now on the website, Eric?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so that's a really important one to read through for all of us. We revised that this past fall, and at some point we finally got through all the revisions and we approved it. And so Steve, that's found under boards and committees, and it's like volunteer information. But it lists all of the boards and committees and how you get appointed and what your role is and what a chair needs to do and so forth. And then the town ordinances. Eric, I don't know if this could be put in a brighter spot, a more easily accessible from the front page, maybe, town ordinances, but they're listed under boards and committees. Then you go to the select board, then you go to town ordinances, and then you find ordinances, other permits, policies, and state laws. And so I think it was very hard for me to find, and I'm familiar with the town website. I think there might be people in town who want to know, where are the ordinances? And unless you use the search feature,
which I just did, yeah.
you won't find it easily. But that's something that we should all be aware of what those ordinances are. And so we need to know where they are so you can actually read them. A
It
long
is
time
on-
ago, they
yeah.
asked that
Yeah.
each new select board member read through every ordinance. Well, that would be at least 1,000 pages of reading.
No.
So just knowing where they are, maybe skimming through them, aware that there is a noise ordinance, so that if someone asks you, you know where to go and look for something. Sorry.
Just
That's
one,
perfect. No, thank you.
it is a little bit easier to get to than that. You go to the documents and then it's right under that link. So for ordinances and policies. So again, it could be clearer. And I think that maybe having a separate button for ordinances, but first level as opposed to documents and then ordinances.
Yeah,
But it is there. It's a clearer path.
Oh, okay, there's
Yeah.
documents over there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's make a clearer path. I like that.
So
Warrant procedures we sort of went through, talked about, we split our times up and we made sure that we understand when we need to come in and review. Again, that will be something that we always have your back. For some reason you can't make it in, call Eric, he will let us know, and we basically piggyback between it. Our attendance policy, we basically, I guess when it comes to, how would you describe this, Catherine, our attendance policy? We expect you to be here. And if you have to zoom in, you can certainly do that if you're traveling and you want to do that. But basically, if you can't make it, we'd prefer you let us know and get an excused absence. But if we miss you and you're just not here, then we start to wonder if what is going on. So then that's basically it.
And
Yeah.
as with every other board, committee, and commission, 3 consecutive unexcused absences is grounds for termination. And
Yes.
This came from a time when we had a person on the select board who just stopped attending.
Well, there you go.
And there was no policy in place to do anything about that. So we were truly functioning as a 4-member board.
Yes. Well,
And so we can be excused for any reason just about, and I don't think you really have to give a reason. Again, it's not the parent situation. It's just, I have something that causes me to not be able to attend tonight.
Yep. Pretty simple stuff. Generally common sense will rule out. Remote meeting policy. We just sort of hit on that a little bit. If you can't be here, we always provide a way for you to zoom in. And that's a good thing. Executive session rules we just did. We went through that. Luckily, we had an executive session this evening to familiarize yourself with that. The agenda setting procedure, I mentioned this earlier, but the chair and vice chair meet with the town manager to plan. And certainly we see tonight if their select board members have something they'd like to put on the agenda, we can always adjust to do that. The agenda, like Eric said, is a time budget, and we always try to arrange that. I would suggest taking your trainings, looking through these things. I would suggest for Sean and Carol to maybe re-familiarize yourself with some of these things in case. But we're always trying to make our new members feel a little bit more welcome. It is overwhelming and a gigantic learning curve. So anything we can try to do to help support that. Yes, Catherine, go for it.
So I volunteered earlier this year to come up with a sort of training handbook and got way too busy in my personal life and didn't do it. But in looking back through things today, I found at least 5 different documents dating back to 2009 that either I had been involved with or others had, and Eric forwarded it to me. So this has been something that people have been looking at. I think there was even one from 2004 and from the 90s. And we don't have one. And we really should just have one and then revise it so that not only new members, but prospective new members could see what they're signing up for if they want to run for office.
Yep.
So I will again volunteer to put something together that's not, 87 pages long, but
I think that's brilliant. Yeah, I think that's brilliant.
and I think passing it by the new members would be really important because you could be like, this is way too much for me. I can't handle this. Or like, why didn't you talk about this?
Absolutely. If there's any other discussion about this, please say it now, or otherwise we're going to try to wrap us up. Very well. We move to item 22-153, schedule upcoming meetings and events. We have the schedule of
Can I just
select board
make a
meetings.
Motion to extend our meeting by like 15 minutes, I think.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to extend the meeting by 15 minutes. All in favor? Thank you. We have the following schedule for our meetings. Get ready because it's coming. On July 18th will be our next select board meeting. July 18th.
I will not be in attendance.
Thank
So I would
you.
like an excused absence in advance.
You certainly shall have it. In August, on August 22nd, hang on one second to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. On August 22nd will be the select board retreat. And yes, it's goal setting. We don't go anywhere. We just come up here and we eat dinner together. But essentially we get together and we talk about our goals, things that we want to accomplish, things that we want to have in common for 2022 into 2023. And that is on August 22nd. I think we do 4 to 8 p.m.
That
on
might
that.
be tough.
Okay.
I would offer, I know my work schedule out past like to August. So if we could push it to a day in September, and if I need to be here before 5:30, then I would need some, or maybe even.
Well, I'll tell you
I
some
could
information.
Request some time off but
Could we
it has
just
to be
meet
after
later?
August.
Yes.
We meet later.
My question,
in
yes.
your date?
There is a bit of there's rhyme to this. There's reason to some of these, because what we want to do is we also have then the select board meeting is scheduled for August 29th out of that, so that we can share with what we got on the 22nd. And we wanted to do it before the 19th, which I believe, September 19th, which I believe we are calling is that our chairs? Is that the,
You had set that as a potential select board meeting.
okay.
Um,
When did we say was our
We haven't
chairs?
actually set the chairs meeting. That's typically in September or
Okay.
October.
So then let me just pause for a moment. So the retreat would be the 22nd, but if we need to do it from 5 at 5, that's fine too, if that helps.
I'm actually remote that day, so I can be here by 5.
Perfect. Sean,
5:15.
5:15 will be fine for you. Yeah, absolutely.
5:30?
Yeah,
Um,
it's my first day back after vacation. so
Gotcha.
Asking to leave early.
Yeah. Understood, yeah.
So since it's important that we're all here and it's a group gathering.
Yeah.
Why don't we just make it 5:30
Yeah, 5:30 sounds good.
and we'll do 5:30 to 9
Yeah, That's fine, because we'll have dinner.
and we'll have dinner.
Yeah, we'll have dinner provided.
Is that the
we'll
only
do that.
meeting we have in August then?
No, ma'am.
Oh.
Our follow-up meeting is to discuss in our regular meeting, the goals that we have come out of on the 22nd is the 29th. It's a week later. So yes, it is back-to-back meetings, but we don't have another one until September 19th.
September 19th.
And that's as far as we got. So I just want to review. August, our next one is July 18th. In August, we are the 22nd for the retreat and 29th for the select board, and September 19th. And that'll take us through the next 3 months.
I think we need to set the chairs meeting because the chairs need time to.
I agree.
To be noticed, but I think we had talked about the 11th and possibly doing a meeting from say 6 to 7 for
What
the
month are we?
chair.
Yeah, what month are we?
Oh, sorry, October, because the 10th is a holiday.
Okay.
So it would be Tuesday, the 11th. I think we may have talked about doing the chairs meeting from like 6 to 7 or 6 to 7:30 and then have an hour-long select board meeting afterwards.
We've done that before too, yeah.
And that would be October 11th, a Tuesday.
No, I can't do a meeting that week.
Okay.
That-
Do
Okay. How
we
about
want to try the
this
17th of October?
On a Monday?
Better. On a Monday?
Yep.
Chairs meeting. What we'll do is I'll do chairs and select board on October 17th.
Do we need an hour or an hour and a half for that
We need an hour. I would schedule 2 hours
total?
total.
So 1 hour and 1 hour?
1 hour and 1 hour. What I would suggest, but I might be wrong.
Eric, what do you
It's
think?
been happened before.
I would think a little bit more. We'll have food.
So
yeah,
let's, so
yeah,
let's
good
do
call.
6 to 7:30 and then select board to 8:30.
You got it.
Oh, so that's combined with the select board.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll have the chairs first and then we'll do a select board meeting
Rather
after.
than have two separate meetings, it might
Yeah.
be.
Then you only have to
Better.
schedule one night that month.
Yeah, and you only have to be.
And then probably starting in November, we'll probably go back to meeting
Yeah,
twice
we
a month.
won't- we
because
won't
it's
get
the
to
beginning
November
of budget
just
season and
Yeah.
there are typically more things that come up, annual things to take care of.
Does everybody have the schedule clear?
And I will
Looks
send that
wonderful.
out.
Thank you.
tonight.
Thank
I
you so much.
appreciate that.
If there is no other discussion, the summer residence meeting, we have that already?
Oh, we talked about.
Yeah,
that.
I'd meant to pull up what we have a traditional date. It's like the first Saturday or second Saturday in August. I will. The
First.
select board is not required to be there. It's helpful if we have a few members present. But generally, it's a listening session to hear from our taxpayers who are not necessarily residents or voters about what their key priority issues are, to give that opportunity for feedback and engagement. So I will send an email out with a confirmation of whatever that is. Catch as catch can.
Okay.
Don't feel obligated, but please come if you can.
I think we had discussed not the second Saturday because that's Heritage Days weekend.
Okay, it must be the first Saturday
So that
then.
would be August 6th then.
Okay, that sounds right. So we'll pencil that one in.
Sounds good to me.
What is it called?
It's the
Summer residence meeting.
It says, you know, folks, they pay taxes, but they may be living
But they're not
somewhere else.
represented.
Yeah.
The key thing over the years that has come out of that, there are two key things. One was the Maranacook Lake Dam renovation project, because many of those summer residents live on Maranacook Lake, and they were very concerned that we take care of that, which we did. And another issue, which for some reason it's a really big one, is Sundays at the transfer station. And so that they are a key component to why we have Sunday hours at the
Yeah.
transfer station.
It's cool. I like it.
I think it has to do with lobster shells.
Yes.
Well,
Oh, yeah, all the lobster, they don't want to hold on to them.
But when you're headed
They
home
don't wanna hold
after
on to
a
'em.
weekend of eating clams
That
and
makes
lobster
sense.
shells, they don't want to leave it in the building. So.
Is there a time of day on that typically?
8 to noon is the, well, I mean, sorry, the summer residence meeting is usually in the evening. We usually do 4 or 5.
For like an
Um,
hour.
Yeah, it's usually just
Technically
before,
afternoon.
just before cocktail hour. I guess I'll put it
Yeah,
that
something like
way.
that. Yeah. Don't mind if I do. If we have all of those and we can move on, I would like to move to item 22-154. Consider renaming the Route 17 side of Giles Road to Craig Mill Drive. It doesn't bother me one bit. Chip explained this. The issue is, if you don't know, Giles Road is the road that if you come down 41 Sturtevant Hill, Sturtevant Hill Road, and just drive across, it's the one with the closed bridge. It used to connect 17 to Old Kent's Hill Road, but it does not any longer due to the unsafe bridge, the dangerous bridge. So in order to not confuse Google Maps, or because right now it shows it as an open road, Chip, the code enforcement officer, has worked with the folks there to get it to be changed to Craig Mill Drive.
So I'm just really curious, the genesis or the origin of that name.
No idea. Zero idea.
It's in the
right
packet.
there.
Oh, does it?
There's a
Okay,
What
yeah.
is in there?
That's fine.
How did I miss that?
The
Yeah.
owner,
Oh, is that the old house? Yeah, okay.
the
That's it.
owner of the Craig Mill House prior to 1880 was named for James Craig, and then it was converted to the residence of the Fogg family of Readfield. The house still stands at the end of Millstream Road. Is that the one that Bob Bitar owns?
Yeah, and we have, well, I'm not 100% sure about that. But we already have a Fog Road, so we looked for a historical name that had some relevance.
Gotcha.
And
I
that's the
think
origin.
based
So that's
on
the
the
answer.
picture that's there, that's the house that he brought back from falling into the earth.
Yeah.
And so it's some connection to the
Got it.
area is why
Fi-
Chip picked it.
Yeah,
I figured that. I missed that. So thank you.
I would
I'd like
entertain a
to make
motion.
A motion to rename I'm going to get this right, which side?
Route 17.
The Route 17 side of Giles Road to be Craig Mill
Drive.
Drive,
And he
as
wanted something
presented.
different, yeah.
as presented in the packet.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to rename the Route 17 side of Giles Road to Craig Mill Drive. Is there any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you very much. Yes, Eric?
just before you make a motion to adjourn.
Well,
Lee
we're
Mack
gonna wait for him.
Did let me know that the training for NIMS is required for G402, and there's also a new requirement for G191. So we will make sure we add those to the list of fun things that you guys get to do. So
So
It's-
are some of those ones that we might not have done already, sitting members?
I think the G191 looks like it would be a new one, but I'll confirm that. And
Clarify.
there's
Sounds
definitely some work
exciting.
to be done
Yeah.
on that.
And I think the
Sounds exciting.
NIMS, the one we've all done, I think is one that you can do wholly online.
Yeah, it's all you have to do is watch video.
I think these probably are as well.
Hannah, address us, say your name, and we will give you some time.
They're the head of the Readfield Rec Association. I apologize for missing the public comment in the beginning. But I did want to share a few things following the June 14th vote about the proposed development. I just wanted to share that after the vote, I did have some feelings of complete discouragement. I'll be completely honest. After all the work and time that I and all of the rec committee, past and present, have put into building rec, all of the amenities, all of the association itself and what we do for the community and for the children. But my discouragement didn't last long because we had a baseball game to play and another softball game. And so I realized the kids deserve more. I will also share that many folks were shocked after learning that the proposal didn't pass. Many who would have been yes votes apologized for not actually getting out to vote. Among the last few days of school, that's when June 14 happened. So last day of school wrap up, 5th grade promotions, pre-K graduations, a regional baseball playoff game that took people all the way to Standish. People just weren't in town or didn't have the time to go vote. And I believe they also had the faith that something as good for our town as a proposed addition for outdoor recreation would pass. A side note, 2022 is also the 50th anniversary of Title IX, a measure that was put in place to ensure that girls get equality in sports, playing fields and facilities most of all. I'm sorry. I just really think our girls in Readfield deserve a lot better than an overgrown base paths, crumbling bases, and a field that's too small for what we need, that they're forced to use, or to drive all the way to Manchester and hope that the Manchester teams aren't already playing on the field for them to be able to have a practice or play a game. So my hope is that we can work through and come up with a better solution for our programs and our community. Another part of what has come forward after the vote failed was that we've had a wealth of folks that are ready to step up and donate money to help make this park and complex happen. The Rec Association would like to request, and this can be a future agenda item, that an account specific for these donations be set up so that they're held in their own fund and not flushed into a general capital improvement fund. We want funds given for this purpose to be used for this purpose, whether the plan, location, or anything else shifts. Thank you for the time to speak.
Thank you, Hannah, very much. Thank you for your work. Absolutely.
Can I ask, because I didn't hear, how close was that vote? I
It was
400, yeah.
yeah, over 100.
Over
Just over 100.
And with 200 over 250 blanks.
Right.
So thank you, Hannah. And thank you to everyone on the rec committee who put that time in. Catherine, you have something to say?
Yes, I think it's very important, since there were two proposals put forth, each of which were voted down by the general public, that those both be agenda items on our retreat,
Oh, yeah.
that we need to discuss them. We need to discuss the merits of both projects, some of the issues that we've heard from other folks, as well as our own awareness of why they didn't pass, and what our future steps want to be with those. My own personal take on all of that is it's fine to say, I don't think there's a path forward for broadband. I think there was so much negative campaigning against that has been killed. I absolutely disagree with that, but my role as a select board member is to abide by the will of voters, which is what I said I would do, and it is what I will do. However, with the ball fields, I think we are facing possible litigation under Title IX. If there are people who are talking about that and they bring that forward, that's not going to be a good thing for Readfield. I'm not saying that we have to be coerced by that, but we do have to be aware that that is our role here, is policy setting. We need to do what we can and look at that project seriously, and try and find a path forward that would meet the needs of the residents and address the reasons why that vote went down. And I really think we need to look at finding funding for the project prior to it going back to a vote, because I think if we can say to people,
Here it is.
if you pass this, these organizations will support us with money up to X dollars, I think that will go a long way for people being more comfortable with the project. And so I think there's some different tacks we can take. And I really think we need to maybe take this off of the shoulders of the rec board and have them be more assisting to the town manager. And that this is something I'd like us to consider, that I think we need to take a more active role in promoting this project in a way that's acceptable to the voters, and having the rec board assist rather than having the rec board be the primary focus. I think it's too big for them. And that's what I have to say.
And I'm definitely new to this, obviously, but I am all in on that. I feel very strongly that we need to find a way to make that happen. I'm sure we can. I'm 100% sure we can.
Can I just ask one more quick question?
Please.
In what you were just saying about having funding, if this was completely funded from private donations, does it still have to go to a vote?
Yes. Well, yes and no. Expending the money would not have to go to the vote because we are allowed to accept under our policy? No, under town ordinance. We can accept monies to be spent that are gifts, donations, grants, etc. Probably what we would have to go to a vote for is the actual plan on the property. And so that's part of what we need to discuss, is sort of separating the plans and the money and the oversight of that, because those seem to be the issues that people talked about.
Yes, and whatever hoops, whether they're good or bad, we now know we can jump through and certainly explain. This will go into what I hope will be discussed at the retreat, which is also an updating of the fairgrounds management plan. Go ahead, Eric.
So yeah, I appreciate, and I think that's a good direction of having the board be more active and more in a leadership role, because it did put the rec board in a tough spot to be seen as the proponent when really it was a town, it was everybody, or it should have been approached that way.
Thank
But
you.
there was a lot of misinformation on both subjects, and one thing I would ask the board to consider is perhaps before we have our retreat in August or September, whenever we're going to have that, late August, I guess, people are still thinking about these issues. I think it would be important to try to correct some of the misconceptions and misinformation that was put out there before 2 months goes by, so people can have a bit of a clearer picture. Because we were caught at the end of it. We're not an advertising agency. Yeah, we had some flyers that we put out at the front desk and a few other places, and we did try to give a lot more information on the broadband, in part because it was a much more complicated issue. But I've heard a lot of people say that the cost was the major factor. The cost was the major factor, but there was also a lot of misinformation, and I do hope that that the board would consider a clarification statement either in the messenger or the advertiser or even to the KJ, just to say, things didn't go, that got voted down, but here's some of our thoughts on why and the direction we want to head. You might not feel comfortable doing that before the retreat, but I just think it would be good to give some better information sooner if possible.
Eric, I also wonder if on that vein, because while we're trying to correct maybe some of that and just making sure we're staying with the message and the conversations, we were at 9U All-Star Tournament in Bodenham this weekend, and there wasn't a family that didn't ask or talk to me about it while Hannah was coaching. And, and everybody wants to give money. Everybody wants to be a part of this fundraising effort. So maybe in that time, Eric, if you can talk with Hannah or the treasurer and really, line out, well, what's the best way to support receiving those donations when it is important to people, when people are still thinking about it? Because I think waiting to start that doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. Well, and I can tell you right now, we have an account established, which is, I'm still kind of surprised by how circular some of this stuff is. We had an account established for when the first ball field was built. And now it's idle. We can use and will use, unless there's a good reason not to, that account to put these donations into. We're actually, I hope we get a select board vote on July 18th to actually transfer some of those funds or some of those donations that have come in into that account, so we can document that this is what happened. This is how we started it. And it will be seated with that $1,000 donation that came in for the basketball court, plus a few others, and make a point of saying, we have a way to accept this money. We want to do this. But it's so convoluted to me that we had so much community buy-in before, and then it kind of turned around. And I do think that not having it be 100% off the shoulders of the taxpayers was a factor, but we've also seen in recent years that taxpayers have been willing to chip in for things like making the beach free. That went right into the tax bill. It was no longer funded by just people putting in money individually. We've seen other things improved in that way, but the economy has a big part to do with it, and I don't want to go on, but
I want to just wrap up if
yeah,
that's okay.
yeah.
Yep. Anything else about this?
I
Very
guess I
well.
would just ask, would people please, these people, these 5 of us, please let us know if there are items you want to do at the retreat. Because
Okay.
Dennis and I will be planning that with Eric, so.
Yeah, we
wanna
have a
be
list of
inclusive.
things here already, so good.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So before you make that motion, am I allowed to just say one more thing?
I
Because
recognize you and
All
say,
right.
speak, Steve.
here we go. So I was late in finding the information about the road. I know we just approved that, but I noticed that what's in the motion, what's in the article is spelled differently than what's on the map. I want to make sure we are spelling it the right way. So the
Yes.
map that's above the article, if you look at your materials, spells it CRAGGIE, and the article spells it CRAIGGE.
I
And
think
I
it
don't
should be
know what-
CRAIGGE.
You think so?
I believe that is.
I am,
correct.
as long as I just want to make sure we spelled it the right way. Since
Otherwise,
we're
it's
changing the
into
name.
Craggy. Yeah,
no,
craggy.
it was
Yeah.
a typo on the
Misspelled
map.
the
Well,
Yeah.
Okay,
it
so
really-
typo on the map. That's
Yeah.
It
great.
really needs to be
Thank you.
spelled the way that family spelled it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not
That's
what we
it.
think is-
Yeah, that is Craig. It's CRAIGGE.
Okay,
That's
good.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's great because I had a former student whose name was Craigie who lived in town and it was spelled like the name on the map. So I just want to make sure.
Yes, that's
Okay,
it.
cool.
Nice. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
Second now.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor? Very well. Have a good night. We're done.